Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to Valhelsia 3. So, since the last episode, it's been a little bit of time. You will notice that I did set up a chunk loader here, and this is basically just going to chunk load. It's set to 6 on the radius. I may end up changing it or seeing what other options we have. Of course, I'm not a long-time fan of chicken chunks, though I do think it's better now than it was like in 1.7. Back then it was really bad about corrupting chunks. I don't believe that that's still the case, so we may stick with it. I actually like the way the chunk loaders work with chicken chunks, but just in the past I had issues with them. But of course you can set different shapes here. I'm going to keep it as square, and I'm doing 6 chunks because that's going to keep pretty much our entire base, I think, chunk loaded, so that our base can kind of continue working while we're away, while we're doing other things. It can continue, you know, kind of doing what all it needs to do to kind of stay up, still producing materials and things. Over here I did get this building built, and I added some recipes in. If we take a look here, you can see that I've taught them how to make a variety of tools here at the blacksmith, and so now whenever tools get requested, the blacksmith handles that, and I don't have to, you know, I can kind of be hands-off as far as tool creation and whatnot. Now, aside from that, not a whole lot has changed, excluding there's been a couple upgraded buildings, namely the the animal areas. So we have a tier 3 cowboy and a tier 3 sheep area over here, and so that's what these look like. Oh, it looks like my person failed to pick up their stuff. Sometimes that happens. Not really a big concern, but I'll pick that up while I'm over here. And then our sheep area. And also, let's see, I planted industrial hemp here. Of course, the farmer is not managing these 2 fields at the moment, the aubergine and the industrial hemp. I'm not sure if he's going to handle industrial hemp that well. If he doesn't, then, you know, I'll change it to something else. I'm not that worried about it, but I did get those planted there. And then this is the tier 1 of the A rank villager house decoration thing. Now what we're going to be doing today is we're going to set off, first and foremost, we're going to set off, and we're actually going to be heading over to, I think, this area right in here. Because I think this is where I want to set up for create. I want to make sure that we have a lot of space. I don't want it to be in the mine colonies area, because of course my plan is to kind of use you know, all this little space here and the water as well, as kind of our base, but kind of segment things. Create and mine colonies both, I kind of want them to be their own thing. Normally when we do mods, of course, we kind of, you know, mix and match, use bits and pieces from each mod. With create and with mine colonies both, I kind of want them to be sort of self-contained systems. That's not to say that we won't use create for some other mods, like maybe auto crafting components and things for, say, mechanism, or use it for you know, automating things for blood magic, you know, something like that. But as far as create goes, I don't want to use other mods to kind of lessen the effect of the create mod. I don't believe. I kind of want to keep that a little bit more self-contained, and do stuff with it on its own, including like material gathering and stuff. And if you've never played around with create, I've actually had a decent amount of experience with it because I played around with it a lot whenever it first came out. There are some new features, but create is a pretty self-explanatory mod. It's a lot like if you've ever played with Crossroads. It's a lot like the Crossroads mod in that you don't just set up a block and that's it. And it's not like, you know, immersive engineering or something like that where you have a lot of multi-blocks. They're still kind of the same thing to me as just a regular tech mod, in that you still just set up a machine and it does a certain process. Oh, how am I going to get up here? What's the best way to get up here? Probably around to this side. So it and Crossroads both are very different from normal mods in that regard, because it takes a lot of different things, like different pieces doing different things to create sort of a certain process. Now, It's a whole lot easier and a whole lot more straightforward than Crossroads, but it does look a lot better than Crossroads in my opinion. It's more fun to watch it run than Crossroads. But overall, it's a really straightforward, really easy mod to kind of jump into and just kind of pick up and play. Crossroads is a bit more, tends to be a bit more effort to kind of jump into. So let's see, where do we want to start first? Because I have a plan for one of the first structures that we're going to be building. Because over here, of course, we're going to be doing some rather large builds. And we're going to be building separated structures that all kind of make up a whole. Not just one big building, but a lot of different, kind of different components. I think, let's see, I think for the first structure that I want it, because I was wanting it kind of hanging off this hill up here, but we're not going to be able to jump into the first structure until we get some basic stuff laid out to kind of get us started with create. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's see, this would be, yeah, this should work. We're going to come in right in here, and we'll make adjustments as we need to once we kind of get a feel for the way that this stuff is going to be set up. And I actually debated a little bit with the style that I wanted to go with, because I thought about, you know, Crossroads lends itself very well to like a steampunk style design. So I considered, you know, doing all this in like a floating airship or something, like steampunk style airship. I thought that would be kind of cool, but then I changed my mind. I thought about doing a big underground area, then I didn't really like that. I want this to be above ground. I know we're digging into the side of a mountain, but that's because we're going to be building along the edge of this mountain and on top a bit, and have some sections that kind of hang out off of this. But I debated for a while about how I wanted to set this up, or what theme that I wanted to go with for our create stuff, and I think I've come up with what should be a pretty interesting system. So we're going to go ahead for right now, and let me dig this back just a little bit more, just to make sure we aren't spawning into the walls. We're going to leave this as the default name because this waystone will get moved before too long. I want to go ahead and set that up so that we can move back and forth between our mine colony town and this area with ease. So now let's go ahead and pull up create, and you're going to see just a lot of things. Most of this is decorative blocks. You can see all of that's pretty much decorative. There's these liquids here. But most of this is all decorative stuff. And some of these things are like components and stuff, but basically from here on up is usable things. There's actually quite a bit. It doesn't seem like a lot of content at first glance, but it actually, there's a ton, because there's a lot that you can do with these different things. Now the first thing that we're going to have to do, if you ever played around with rotary craft, create and rotary craft in a lot of ways are very similar, because they, for the most part, rely on rotational power. Basically, energy, and a source of energy, but it revolves around shafts and things kind of turning. You know, stuff like water wheels, windmills, fans that can produce power, stuff like that is going to be our power production. Now, starting out, to get us started, we're going to start really basic. We're going to go with a water wheel. We're going to use these very briefly. We will use them a bit as time goes on. Oh, it's going to take a level of experience. That was actually a very costly level, but that's all right. But let's say to get our water wheel, because we just need some basic starting kind of energy production, rotational force. So we're going to need andesite. We're going to need iron nuggets or zinc nuggets. We're going to be going with iron nuggets. So let's go ahead and do that. And there's 9 andesite alloy to kind of get started. And then we're going to need a bunch of slabs and wood and buttons. So let's go ahead. There's that. There's a couple cogwheels. And there is a couple, yeah, let's go with a couple water wheels to get us started. Okay, and then we are going to need, of course, water. And I'm going to go ahead and get 2 buckets. And then in addition, we should go ahead and get ourselves some shafts, which are just these andesite alloy. Let's go ahead and go with 32 for right now. And the very first thing that we're going to start working towards, because I'm going to be using Create not just for kind of making things, but we're going to be using it for a lot of our decorative aspects too. We're going to have stuff that doubles as a decorative object in our build, but also it will be producing that rotational power, because if you've been around the channel, you know that I love things that have a lot of movement. I think it adds a lot to a base, and so so it's not just static. You know, that is like just looking at, say, a picture or something. There's no movement, but having that bit of movement, I think, adds a lot to a base. So we're going to be building with movement, as it were, a bit. We're going to have a lot of movement in this base. Water wheels do move. They're okay, but what I'd really like to be using for a lot of our building is things like windmill bearings and mechanical bearings. Now, to actually make use of these, we're going to need to start making a lot, and I mean an absolute ton, of super glue. And this stuff only crafts one at a time. So, to do that, we're going to need a lot of slime. And to get a lot of slime, we are going to be going with this recipe here, basically combining lime dye and dough. So I'd like to automate a lot of the process of this. Wheat, we will automate wheat, but it's not really high on my priority list, but we will be moving to that before too long. But what I would like to do is get a couple things related to actually processing down the wheat flour and making the dough. The dough you can make by hand, but that's not any fun. We're not going to do that. There's a whole lot easier method for that. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and make ourselves a meal stone. So let's go ahead. We're going to need andesite alloy. Is one of those things you really can't have too much of it when you start diving into Create. So we're going to make some more of that. Okay, I just had a crash. I've been getting those exit code 0 crashes on occasion. I think it's memory. I believe it is, anyways. So I really need to give this more memory, because I think I'm only giving it like 8 gigs, and that's a bit low. But there's our millstone. We're going to go ahead and take that. And I also want to go ahead, we're going to need some other things, but I do want to go ahead and get a fan as well. One of these encased fans. So we're going to need that. And a propeller. Oh, that's going to take, okay, that's going to take iron sheets. We can actually apparently get that with the engineer's hammer, but that is actually, I don't think, intended, because, yeah, this is an immersive engineering, basically replacing sheets with plates is what it's doing. That's not actually intended, so we're not going to do that. We're going to be going with the presser to do this. So, to get that, we're going to need a block of iron, and we're going to grab our mechanical press. Okay, and then let's go ahead and just get a crafting table, and that should be good. I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple stacks of wood. I'll also grab some stone and some more andesite in case we need that. That should be good for right now. And then we'll pop back over. I'm going to be killing my XP. It's fine. It's whatever. Let's go ahead then. Let's see. We'll just set up a water wheel kind of temporarily to kind of get us started. That way we can kind of get everything sort of organized here. And the best way for us to do this is going to be put it down right there. And I think it'll be here. And then bring it down to here. Let's do that. And if we were to... oh, I had to redo everything that I started off doing because the crash... Okay, it looks like it's coming out right there. We'll stop that. There we go. So the water wheel's turning, the water's flowing around it. It's just like immersive engineering in that the more sides that are, you know, kind of connected to the water, the faster that it's going to run. And then what we can do is we can bring out this shaft here, and that's going to bring out the rotational force here out into that. Now, one thing that we could go ahead and do, just because we might as well start off on the right foot. No, but I've got to get golden sheets. Okay, never mind. We'll get that here shortly. But if we bring this out, and let's see, to make sheets, I'm going to need... That's not the basin. I guess it would be the depot, I think. Been a little bit since I've done this, but... yeah, right here, the depot. We're going to go ahead and grab one of these. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to set this up, and we will kind of shift this once we have the stuff that we need to kind of make this a little bit better. But the mechanical press, there needs to be a block between it and whatever it's above. So it could be the basin, or it could be the depot, or it could be the conveyors or mechanical belts. That's what they're called. We'll get into mechanical belts before too long. I don't know if it'll be this episode. Maybe. Might be. Who knows? But we'll see. Let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and get a few of these. So if we were to place this down and we give it a second, you can see it's not really fast, but it's going to smash that, and then it's going to come back up, and we now have 10 iron sheets. Now I think if we were to do this one at a time, yeah, see, it's the same speed, but in that case, of course, it's only going to make one iron sheet. So if you can, you might as well throw down a few of these, just kind of speed it up as far as how many you're getting per operation. Because at first, right now, it's not all that fast, but we will get this all moving a bit faster. So what we're going to do now, we've got the millstone, and I want to get the encased fan. We're going to need the propeller. There's that, and yeah, I think I'm just going to go with one. We could do two, because if you have two, you can actually make a little self-contained system really easy, where you make power with the encased fan, and you use power with the encased fan. But there is the encased fan. We'll talk a little bit more about that here a little bit later. I'm going to grab just a little bit of gold, and then while I'm here, and glass, right? For the engineer's goggle, yeah, any kind of glass. We're also going to need string. Let's go ahead and just get ourselves one of these, and then let's get our engineer's goggles. Okay. And these, as you might expect, they go on your head, and it's going to make us look kind of spiffy. And this has, yeah, it does have cosmetic armor. Okay. But now if we look at this, you can see how many stress units we have. This is important. This is very important information, because based on the amount of stress units that you have as your capacity on your generators, you basically cannot go above that on your stress impact. If you do, you can go up, like for this, for example, I can go up to 128 stress units on my impacts. But if I go above that, then it's going to shut everything down. So I need to kind of manage it and make sure that I'm not creating more stress on my system than what my generators are producing. Luckily, after we get our glue system set up, we're going to be making something that is going to give us an absolute ton of stress units for the capacity, and it's going to make our base just run pretty good. We'll be able to run stuff at pretty fast speeds, though I don't want everything to go at like maximum speed, because it tends to be, conveyors and stuff don't look as good when they run too fast, and the same is true for the machines, in my opinion. So in a lot of places, we're going to be going with form over function, as per usual. We're going to try to make it look nice as we do things with Create. As you could tell by this beautiful cave that we're living in right now. Okay, so now we've got the encased fan. We have the millstone. So at this point, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and get a chest, and we're going to make a hopper. And we're going to tear down the mechanical press. I don't actually need this anymore, at least for right this second. And we are going to instead have our millstone. And this thing's kind of cool because you can either, if you take a look at the bottom of the millstone, there is an axle point there. So you can actually run your axles up, or your shafts up into the millstone to cause it to turn. But kind of the cooler way to do this, we're gonna be going with that, is to have it actually just rotated with gears, with cogwheels. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna speed up our speeds just a little bit, because right now they are super slow. So if we put a cogwheel there, and we run this off, yeah, it'll be, you can see these arrows that show up. We're gonna run it off, I guess, on this side. It's going to cause this to basically speed up how fast it is turning. And then what we're going to do is, let's see, we'll run this off. This is going to get moved around slightly. But right now I just want to get production, like large-scale production of our glue up and going. Really, I don't need the shaft there. Yeah, we'll run this down. You can kind of see that this one is now turning faster than this one because we're turning this smaller gear, which naturally is going to spin faster because there's less, there's less of a diameter here on this gear than on this one. So it's going to cause this one to spin a bit faster and then cause this axle to turn faster. But let's see, how do I want to run this down? Actually, I'll tell you what, instead of having it there, just to make this work a little bit better for us, let's put this cogwheel here. And let's make ourselves, there's a few ways that we could do this, because like for example, if you take this cogwheel and we were to place it here, it's going to spin, allowing us to now transfer over to a vertical, a vertical shaft here. But an easier way to do that, a little bit more compact method, is to go with our gearboxes, and we're going to go ahead and get some more buttons and some more cogwheels, and we are going to make ourselves a gearbox, and we're going to turn it into a vertical gearbox, and we're just going to plug this in right here, and this is going to allow us to then run the shaft downwards. And then if we were to put a cogwheel in right here, and we then attached the millstone here, that's going to cause this to turn now. And you can see that it is 64 stress units of an impact. And we have a 128. So we could technically have like 2 of these running at this speed before it overpowered the system. But the faster that your stuff runs, the higher the stress units that it's going to create. So for example, if we instead had it attached to this speed, it would probably be like a 32 SU. But we could go up and, a lot faster by doing the same thing, having, a small cogwheel running off of a large cogwheel, and then bring this out to another large, bring it out to small, and we will do that later with some stuff, but right now we're kind of limited on our stress units. Now we can double the amount of stress units that we currently have by setting up our second water wheel, which we will do here shortly. But our millstone's now running, and what we're going to do is we're going to attach a hopper to it, and we're going to put the hopper in, say right here, or technically we could set it up on top as well. May as well set it up on top. So basically with this, let me pop home real quick, just really fast here. Let me go grab some wheat. And now, for example, if I was to take, let me actually just toss this. I don't need all these seeds and stuff. But if we were to take a piece of wheat and we throw it in here, you can see some particles coming out of that. And we give it just a second for those particles to stop. And now if we were to right click this, you can see that we just got 3 wheat flour. Because every time we run wheat through a mill, we're going to get wheat flour with a 25% chance to get a couple more and a 25% chance to get wheat seeds. But for example, and this may move slightly, but for example, let me get another bucket and let me pop down. Let me get an infinite water source set up. And also while we're down for just a minute, I'm going to run over to the ocean and I'm going to get some kelp because we're going to need kelp here shortly. And honestly, a kelp farm is going to be one of the early things that we do because you use so much kelp whenever you are messing with Create because you need it to make your mechanical belts. I keep wanting to call them conveyors. I know that's not the name, but that's just what every other mod calls them. But mechanical belts, we're going to be making a lot of those. But we're going to be taking Create slow at first so I can talk you guys through it because it's one of those mods. Like I said, it's pretty easy once you get kind of a hang of it and once you're kind of accustomed to rotational force and kind of those mechanics especially. Like I said, if you ever played with Rotary Craft, you kind of have an edge up on that because it's very, very similar to Rotary Craft. Which is nice because Rotary Craft is still one of my favorite tech mods of all time, but of course it's no longer, it's kind of discontinued at this point, so it still exists for, if you go back to 1.7, it still exists and is getting updated, but it's not getting updated to newer versions. So. And I found some coal. I went ahead and mined that up because we're going to need that, kind of. And let's go ahead and get ourselves a furnace, just so I can get some smelting up and going. And we're going to get some of this kelp started up smelting. So what we're going to be doing, get ourselves an infinite water source here. And let's see. And then let's go ahead and right over here, I'm going to set up another cogwheel to get this going. And we can, let's see, we could go ahead and get the wrench, I guess, which would be good. Yeah, in a minute we will do that. Actually, let's, instead of having it here, let's have it run off the bottom side. Now this part may get reorganized, but for right now, just to give you an example of what we're doing, if we put in the encased fan, no, I don't want it flowing like that though. Let's instead, let's make a gearbox, and this time we're just going to do just a standard gearbox. We don't need the vertical one for this. There is our gearbox, and we can just set this up like right here. Oh, that's going clockwise. What we need is counterclockwise. This side would be great. And it gets reversed within the gearbox. So what we'll probably have to do, just to make this work a bit better, if we put the gearbox in here, that would work. Or a gearbox in there. But realistically, I'm just going to put in cogwheels. And also, let me make a couple chests, because my inventory is really, really bad right now. And that way I can just dump some of these excess materials, these supplies and things, into there. To make a little bit of space. Okay, so let's see. Let's get a gearbox, another gearbox. And what we could do is we could either adjust this. It doesn't matter for a lot of things, but something like a fan, it's going to matter. Most of the time, counterclockwise or clockwise, it doesn't matter which way the rotational force is going. Fans, though, if it's going clockwise, it's going to pull us in. And if it's going counterclockwise, it's going to push things away from it. We want it to push things away from it in this case. So we could either put the gearbox in right here, and this would change it to a counterclockwise rotation, or we could just change the rotation of basically everything by putting our gearbox in right here. And I think that's what we're going to do. I mean, this is still going to work the same because it doesn't matter which direction the millstone is rotating. It's still going to have the same effect, and it's still going to crush that up for us. So yeah, that time I only got one wheat flour. But let's do our encased fan setting here, and then what we're going to do, which this waystone already needs to get moved, so let's make a little bit more space here. Alright, so let's go ahead and put in just some kind of border block. We'll probably change it to something like glass before too long. But if we were to take ourselves a bucket and place that down, basically whenever an encased fan is facing a water source or a fire source, there's certain recipes that it can do. Like, for example, if it's near a fire source, it can basically stimulate the fire and allow you to smelt things that maybe you normally wouldn't be able to smelt. And then with water, we're going to be able to wash the wheat flour and create a dough with it, instead of having to do this horrible recipe where we have to get a bucket of water every time. You can also do it with a mixer, which works, you know, it's fine. But once again, this requires water, and we don't want to have to do that. The encased fan is perfect for this. So if we were to throw in wheat flour into that water, and we give it just a little bit, it doesn't take very long, but it's going to turn that wheat flour into dough. So there's the dough. Boom. And then, of course, now we can take that and we can combine it with lime dye to get slime balls. But to make things a little bit better for us, I want to get the rest of this automated. And to do that, we're going to have to make bronze and brass. And to make brass, we are going to have to make the mixer, the basin, and we're going to have to get ourselves a blaze burner. All of this is really, really easy. This is all pretty early game. To get our basin, this is just andesite alloy, so we're going to go ahead and grab that. To get our mixer, we're going to have to make a whisk, and then we can get ourselves a mechanical mixer. Now the mixer works a little bit differently in that you can't really feed an axle into this. If you take a look here, there is no point where the axle can connect to. We're going to have to put in a cogwheel system. I think probably the best way to do this is we can run this off, put a cogwheel in right there. And this will be temporary too. I don't plan on having my brass generation here, so I'm kind of running this up. But just a heads up, it's not intended to stay here. But if we put that there, and we put in, yeah, you can see this takes 128 stress units because I have sped it up a little bit. So at this point, we are going to have to speed up our water wheel, or not speed it up, but add more stress units to it. So 256, 256, and now at this point, if I was to plug up this mechanical mixer, you can see that it works just fine. It's going to cost 256 stress units. We have 64 there, and we have 128 over here as far as our stress units go. Now the basin for this, it's going to have to actually be placed up like, or no it's not, yeah, right there. It's going to have to go there, and then right below this will be the blaze burner. And to get our brass, we're going to need the crushed copper and crushed zinc, which we can do in the millstone. Okay, so now what we're going to do, let's get an empty blaze burner, and I tell you what, I'm just going to make some of these. I got some back at home, but we're going to make ourselves an empty blaze burner, and we need to go into the Nether to find blazes. Let me warp on home, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take our waystone with us. We'll put it back here in just a moment. But we're going to take our waystone with us. That way we can warp back while we're in the Nether using this return to nearest waystone. We're going to throw this down. There we go. And we can set off in search of a Nether fortress. Whew. It's not an exciting prospect. Oh, and I don't have any gold equipped either. Let me get some gold armor equipped. But we're going to set off. I don't see one on the map anywhere. So we're going to set off just kind of off in this direction here. We're so high up though. I've got to get down lower. I just have to. Crimson chest. Ooh, fire gauntlet causes the wearer's melee attacks to deal fire damage. Interesting. I'll take that too, I suppose. Let's go ahead and actually just equip that, which gives us a fire gauntlet here. Okay, I finally found one here. Right there. Saw it on the map as I started to get close. I was like, ooh. And funny thing is, it's not even that far from my home. But I went off in a different direction, and this one was literally right outside the map. And then when I happened to come back, just jump. And then I happened to walk over in this direction. I was like, oh, well, there's one. Alright, so now all we have to do is we have to find ourselves a blaze. Alright. See if we can find one. Here. Right over here. Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click it, and there we go, we got Blaze Burner. Alright. See, we didn't even spend that long here. We might check this out though. We've got a minute here. Let's run around. I was editing some footage. I'm not sure where we're at on time. I know we're probably getting close to wrapping up point, but I'm not sure how close. So I'm going to have a little look around Alright, nether brick chest. What do we got? Saddle? I'll take it. At some point I'll probably come back and take the chest and stuff. Yeah, I'll plan on coming back. I'm just going to leave that there for now, actually. Ooh. I'm going to take that iron horse armor too, just because my horse doesn't currently have armor. Okay, so we've got 740 seconds. I tell you what, I need to take a quick AFK anyways. So I think I may just wait out the timer. Okay, let's go ahead and warp back. And let me grab that. And let me run over to here, over to our house. Because back in this storage room, I do have a couple things. There's one thing in particular, or two things in particular that we're going to need. Yeah, right here. I've kept some copper and some zinc for us to use for this. Gotta go out and try to find some more waystones before long. Or just make them. That would work as well. Go ahead and mark that. And let's warp back over to our create area. Okay, and you'll see recipe filter. We're going to actually get into some filtering come next episode, but we're going to take our blaze burner. We're going to put it right down there, and let's take, well, we'll start off with just a couple pieces so that we can run through this pretty quick. And we're going to get this milled up, and you can automatically pull out of this, and we will be come next episode, but for right now we're doing it the manual way here, and you got to be careful not to pull out the stuff that you don't want pulled out. That should be done. There's 2 crushed copper. And once again, to make our brass, we're going to have to run the copper and the zinc in through the mixer. So, alright, so let's grab this hopper. Let's put it there. We're going to put that, and we're going to put that in. And then let's get ourselves, well, there's our dried kelp. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. Let's grab a piece of this coal, and if we put this in, right-click it, that's going to start running, and it's going to start making us some brass. So there we go. We right-click, and we got ourselves 4 pieces of brass. Okay, now we're going to need, of course, more than that, especially come next episode. But I'm going to get this running, making us some more copper and some more zinc. This, we can now throw this just into the furnace to smelt it up. Okay, so at this point we have brass, and we have kind of the basis of create in place. Realistically, we've moved through pretty much all the progression that create has. It's pretty straightforward as far as unlocking everything, and from this point we can kind of just expand. Brass is really the big thing to kind of push for, because it does take that blaze, but once we have that, we can make a lot of things. And that's what we're going to be doing come next episode. We're going to be kind of automating the system, cleaning it up, and starting to build something a bit larger to kind of push forward with create, now that we've kind of got the initial stuff out. And we're going to get our little slime area. We're going to finish automating that. It's not, I guess it's not really like super necessary that you have this, because the glue does go pretty far, but I have plans to use a fairly large amount of that super glue as we move forward, and it's something that I don't want to have to keep coming back to create, especially the slime. I'd rather just have it, to be honest. So we're gonna finish getting that automated out, just to make our lives a bit easier. And come next episode, we will talk about the belts. We didn't really talk about in this episode. You can use them to move axle power, of course, which we will be doing that in some cases. But generally, I consider them kind of lazy for that. We're mainly going to be using them for item transfer, and then we might use them to move axle power in certain spots, but I like the way that the cogs look a bit more. So I just wanted to mention that. But we're going to talk about belts. We're going to be using them come next episode. So anyways, with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. We got a lot more to do. We've barely even scratched the surface of create, as you might expect. So I hope you guys are looking forward to the next episode. So if you guys enjoyed it, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already, to stay updated with when new videos come out, and I hope to see you guys next time. So until then, as always, do take care, stay safe. I'll see you guys then.